Our first speaker that we're going to introduce this morning is one that is known to the Wisdom Pearl and the Battle for Your Frontal Lobe conferences. Hayley Wolfe is somebody that grew up in the Christian faith, but she would end up wandering far away from God, down the paths of yoga and even Wiccan and witchcraft, before finding her way back into the faith. Herself, she is an apologist where she loves to defend the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, she's going to be talking to you about things that you are eating and in your food that are probably poisoning you in a way that you haven't suspected. Because today it seems all the rage is red dye 40 or high fructose corn syrup. We want to start off today with allowing you to understand that in America and the West, we may be poisoning ourselves with things that we think are easy for us to eat, but in reality are deadly for the physical body. With that, I wish you to put your hands together to bring in Hayley Wolfe.
Hello, thank you for having me. So, as Victor had said, we'll be talking about toxic chemicals on food labels today. I'll teach you how to read some of the more important ones. Now, there's a lot of toxic chemicals out there, so I've narrowed it down to ones that are so toxic they're illegal in a lot of countries. So who am I? I'm an ex-yoga instructor and personal trainer, and I have a background in fitness nutrition. So, flame retardant drinks. On food labels, what you're looking for is brominated vegetable oil, BVO. Sometimes you'll see it listed as brominated soybean oil. And this one is one that actually has been banned in the US, but it's still in circulation for at least 2 more years. Sundrop is an example of one of the mini sodas that might have it. It's actually mostly found in orange-flavored sodas and citrus-type sodas. So this one, luckily, is not in a whole lot of our foods, but you still need to watch out. It will be in things like Great Value's Walmart's brand orange soda. So this stuff is banned in India, almost all of Europe, and Japan. And the reason why I said flame retardant is because that's what that chemical is usually used as, a flame retardant. So, here are the risks for it. So, it accumulates in the thyroid and has a lot of toxic effects on it. It's harmful for the liver and heart. It causes a lot of neurological problems that are quite serious, like psychosis and seizures, headaches, tremors, impaired coordination. It's kind of shocking all of this is just in an orange soda. So this is the examples that I have, right? Just like I said, mostly check out the sodas with this one. It was banned in the US in 2024, so we still have it for 2 more years from that date. There we go. So how about petroleum food dyes? So I'm sure some of you have heard about this toxic rainbow already. So things like red 40 are really popular to talk about, or blue too. This is something you might even want to take a picture of on your phone so you can see. It's not just listed as red 3, yellow 5, all of those things. Sometimes to make it sound more appealing, they'll call yellow 6 sunset yellow, or red 40 is allura red. So the reason why I say petroleum food dyes is because a lot of these are actually derived from the same thing as petroleum, which is gasoline. So it's banned in a lot of places. These are some of the examples we have. I actually went to my local grocery store, so a lot of the pictures you'll see up here, I just went in and took some pictures so you could see what it looks like on the food labels. Unfortunately, especially these food dyes were very, very easy to find. I could just walk in there. It was on a lot of the stuff, the first stuff I picked up. But we'll go over why you want to avoid these. So, red risks. So red 30, it's known for causing thyroid cancer in test animals. Risks of developing things like ADHD, dizziness, muscle pain, heart palpitations, and asthma. So red 3 specifically was just banned in the US in January of this year, but will still be in circulation for 2 more years. And so red 40 is the one a lot of people talk about. This one is known to cause DNA damage, inflammation, tumor growth, so many problems. I know in Europe, a lot of the foods that would normally have this stuff here, they actually take out over there. But in the rare cases they allow for it in some kind of product, they have to have a warning label on it saying that this could be dangerous for children. So, yellow 5. This is one that the European Union legislated that food containing yellow 5 has to have a warning on it for adverse effects on activity and the attention of children. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the spike in so many young kids having ADHD, a lot of attention issues. I feel like a lot of this comes from just these food dyes because so many of them cause stuff like that. Also, another really weird side effect in some people for yellow 5 is it causes purple skin spots. So yellow 6, that one is something a lot of people are allergic to, and you might not notice it because it's not usually severe allergy, but it may cause stuff like nasal congestion, hives, eczema issues. This also causes DNA damage. The picture that I have up here, this is just some Gatorade. So almost all Gatorades have these food dyes, unfortunately. So on to the next one, blue 1. This is another one that causes a lot of allergic reactions and ADHD symptoms. Just about all of these, as you can see, cause some kind of cancer in a lot of people and animals. Also, this one is very linked to things like fertility issues. So a lot of women who are trying to get pregnant may not realize that the food that has the dye blue 1 may be really making that a lot more difficult. And blue 2 also is linked to things like brain tumors and gastrointestinal disorders. And this that I found here is a brand that promotes itself as a healthier solution. This is Welch's fruit snacks. But even in Welch's, they have a lot of these food dyes. The reason why people put food dyes like these in foods, by the way, is because it makes everything look much more vibrant and delicious. So here's some of the examples that I have. Skittles literally taste the toxic rainbow. We have things like Pop-Tarts, icing and sprinkles is a huge one. I would say look for icings that the colors they use are from fruit juice. And Kellogg's cereal, just about all of Kellogg's cereals unfortunately have those kinds of dyes. Some Little Debbie's do. I know a lot of us like Little Debbie's, but just watch out which ones you're eating. So yellow 6, the one that causes a lot of skin issues, is actually in a lot of skin products. So these are some of the non-food examples that I have. So face creams, deodorants, and a lot of nail polishes, especially the cheaper ones. So how about exercise mat in my bread? So we're going to be talking about ADA. This is another one you might want to take a picture of. It's listed as all of these things. So this is something you'll find in a lot of bread. The reason why I say exercise mat in my bread is because it's commonly called the yoga mat chemical. So a lot of the plastic that gets puffed up, like in exercise mats or in flip-flops and things like that, that's actually what this chemical is used for. So the reason why you might find it in things like bread is because it can also preserve things like bread. It's banned in all of these countries, so almost every country in Europe. You have Australia, Singapore, Japan, India. This is an example of what that will look like. I found this on some Kroger brand bread. So its main thing is it's just a huge cancer risk. It can actually cause dermatitis and stuff like that in people as well. These are the things that we should be using it for rather than our foods. You can also see, I have Braille up here. That's a chemical they use to help make it so the little dots come and pop up correctly. And here's some food examples. Once again, unfortunately, it is found in some of Little Debbie's foods, so just watch for that. A lot of Pillsbury has it. I have, so things like Marie Callender's and Jimmy Dean, it's in a lot of frozen foods, so just keep watch for that. And then Sara Lee has it in a lot of their breads as well. So baguette bombs, let's talk more about bread. So potassium bromate, these are also other ways that it's listed on food labels if you want to take pictures of that as well. I find more people have been learning about potassium bromate, so you will most likely see it as bromic acid. So this is very banned, as you can see. The lists are getting longer as we go. All of the European Union, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, this is like all over the place. So, biggest thing is cancer and reproductive damage in humans. So, bakers in Cameroon were tested before and after baking bread with just slightly higher amounts of potassium bromate. And they all, every one of them, experienced potassium bromate toxicity. They had eye pain, cough, diarrhea, and sore throat. And that's just putting a little bit more than what they can legally put in our foods. This is actually how it's normally used. So potassium bromate is an oxidizer. So you'll see it a lot in labs. It's in some hair dyes and frequently used in explosives. So the thing that you see in the explosives is also in a lot of breads and fast food places. So that's mostly going to be the main culprit in the States, like Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, a lot of the fast food places, thankfully not Panera, but this is something that it also preserves their bread really well. Maybe some of you have seen some of the videos where somebody takes a McDonald's sandwich and just sets it out and see how long it'll last. And this is one of the preservatives in the bread that keeps it from rotting for years and years and years. So we're going to talk about two particular antioxidants. We're usually hearing that antioxidants are very healthy and good for us, and that is usually true, but there are two that are man-made. So on food labels, it's usually just going to be listed as BHA or BHT. but I spelled it out for you just in case. So banned, once again, just all over the place. Australia, the European Union has a partial ban on it. Canada, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea. So these are the risks of these particular antioxidants. So known to cause cancer in test animals, linked to impaired blood clotting. It alters hormone functions, which leads to all sorts of diseases. And it's also linked to tumor growth. So these products you'll usually find in things like frozen pizzas. Some cereals have it. There is a lot of gum that has it. So if you're somebody who enjoys chewing gum, watch for things like Extra and Trident, those very popular brands. This is a picture I took of what it looks like. It says BHT to maintain freshness. So, surprise, surprise, another thing that's actually very illegal in a lot of countries is specifically American milk. So, we're looking at these hormones that they inject into cows. These, you'll usually see it just the short version on food labels, so RBST and RBGH. As it kind of says, right, it's a growth hormone. These are things that people use to get more milk out of cows. So American milk is banned in Canada and the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Argentina. So this is what you're looking for, where it says no RBST. This is something that you want to be looking at in a lot of dairy products, not just milk. And it's linked to cancer, especially premenopausal breast cancer. So in cows, right, there's a small percent of blood and pus that's allowed to be in milk. Do you really want it from infected cows? So things you should be looking for, right? All of the brands that I have up here are brands that typically use milk from cows that have these hormones. But yeah, check your cream cheese, your butters, your ice cream, all of these things. Usually when brands do not use this, they make a big deal about it. So you'll see some kind of big thing on the label that says, yeah, we do not use this. So actually, one of the most banned things I have on my list is American corn. So it's GMO. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of genetically modified things. This is a frozen Stouffer's meal that I found it on. What you're looking for, right, is ingredient derived from a bioengineered source. So sometimes when it says a bioengineered source, it's talking about American corn, and sometimes it's soy products. And so this is banned in almost every country in the world. People don't want our American corn. So let's talk about why. So this also has the longest risk list that I have on here. It seems to affect everything, right? So it can cause food allergies, targets the liver, kidneys, GI tract, may increase types of blood cancer, preterm birth dangers, neurodevelopment problems, disrupt the hormone systems, and just like so many risks I couldn't list it on here. And this is just our genetically modified corn. So you want to watch out with that as well, because it's not just like you're looking at straight corn. We have a lot of products that say, like Kellogg's because they're a cereal company. They use a lot of corn-based cereal, but pretty much all of the corn that they use is going to be genetically modified. It's hard to escape it in the US because that's the most common form of corn we have, unfortunately. Also, if a food says it has corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, a lot of that's going to be GMO as well. So I kind of want to talk about same snacks, different ingredients. And so as you can see, I have the US version and the German version of the same cereal. It's Fruit Loops. And I have highlighted in red in the American version. You know, you can see it has a lot of these dyes in it. It also has that BHT I was talking about. But it's kind of unfortunate that out here, because we let companies get away with putting stuff like this in our foods, and it's cheaper for them, the ingredients list ends up huge, right? But in Germany, a lot of these things are banned, and so you can see it's a much shorter list. And instead of using stuff like these petroleum food dyes, they use vegetable concentrates to color their cereal. And if you saw the cereal side by side, definitely the German one is not going to be as colorful, but it's also not going to cause you a bunch of diseases either. So the reason why they do this, right, is because what this tells us is these companies will comply with national law in order to sell their product. So I hope that this is something that us as a people in America can keep pushing and saying, we don't want this, we won't eat this, so that the companies will have to change what they're doing here. Some of you may have seen I think it was this past Monday, West Virginia had something signed into law that's official now where all of those food dyes I was talking about are illegal to sell there now. And that's a huge ordeal because that didn't happen in like any of our other states. But it tells you that the American people have spoken and we don't want these kinds of things anymore. And we can actually have an influence by going to our governors and telling them what we want. So, what do we do in the meantime? Well, there's a lot of great alternatives to these things, and they don't have to be expensive. So first off, I have this. This is a picture from a farmer's market. Of course, not everything there is going to be completely organic, but you'll find a lot of things that are organic there for really good prices, sometimes a lot better than grocery stores. Something also that I was just told about yesterday, my grandfather was telling me that a good option is going to the Amish. If you have any Amish in your neighborhood, they definitely do not use any of this kind of stuff. And he told me that he bought a dozen eggs for $3. And these are like completely, cage-free chickens. You know how crazy that is that the eggs right now, some of the cheapest ones at the grocery store are like $6, but for half of that, you can get some really, really good for you eggs. So also, I want to talk about affordable alternatives because some people think that, but if I switch to organic, it's going to be expensive. And this is actually not true. Places like Whole Foods might make you think that. But I just went to Kroger and looked. So these are cans of black beans, right? The Kroger brand, the organic one is Simple Truth. And as you can see, it's just a 36-cent difference for something that isn't going to cause you a bunch of problems. I found also that this is across the board with most organic things. I listed them so you can see, like, a lot of people may go to Walmart, Kroger, Aldi, Publix. these are the brand names for their organic products. But in general, the average cost is only a 60 to 80 cent difference just to get organic. So, I have a few verses that I would like to bring up to you. And this first one, right, you've probably heard a lot, especially when people are talking about alcohol and drugs, to be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So here's the thing. You can stop drinking. You can stop doing drugs. But the thing is, as you've seen from a lot of the things that I've brought up today, there are a lot of things in these chemicals that are not just affecting other parts of your body, but your mind, the way that you're thinking. I mean, the fact that like more than half of them cause things like ADHD should tell you these things are keeping you from being sober-minded. So, the other things I have for you, right? Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all things for the glory of God. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. So while, yes, we absolutely should be paying attention to our spiritual health, just please keep in mind that your body's health, it affects the way you think and what you're willing to receive. And so these things are not separate from each other. So that was my presentation on toxic chemicals. What I would like to mention, in the beginning, I mentioned that I'm an ex-yoga instructor. So today, I have a table out, and this is a book that I wrote. Just a short version of my story. I was raised in the church, but I left it for 10 years. And I'm a very skeptical person. And so even though I was raised in Christianity, at about 18, I left the church because I just couldn't believe in these things. I became an atheist. And the fact that I became an atheist made me question not just why do Christians believe what they believe, but why does anyone believe the things that they believe? You know, there are people out there meditating for hours to reach something called enlightenment. There's people out there practicing witchcraft, saying that these spells do things. And I wanted to know if there was any validity to any of these things. So I actually experimented in a lot of New Age. I went and meditated with Buddhist monks to see, is this anything that could bring value to my life? And eventually, I stumbled across yoga, which I didn't realize was an orthodox branch of Hinduism. And it was something that I was very good at and fell in love with. Eventually, I went to school for it, which when I went to school for it, I thought that I was going to school to teach people stretching and exercise. But the first thing that I learned was that yoga means to yoke. So what are you yoking to? It's the god Brahma or Brahman. And it's this huge thing where I am you and you are I, and I am God, and everything you see out here is God. And a lot of people don't realize like this is actually like what's behind yoga. And so I learned how to teach it. When I went into it, I was very skeptical about all of that and didn't really pay a lot of attention to the spiritual aspect. But you can't practice something like that and it not come to get you. And eventually I got spiritual results in it. And because it worked, I decided, yes, this is what I want to show other people how to do. Reach enlightenment, see these things and experience these spiritual experiences that I did. And So, unfortunately, I did that for many years, trying to even bring Christians out of Christianity, try to teach them what I thought was the truth. And I was so stuck in that I was never going to get out of it. There was no way. Nobody who talked to me about that was ever going to convince me that this is something that I should leave. And it wasn't until God himself reached out to me. And the short version of that is I went out to meditate one day, and I didn't have a reason to have any doubt in anything that I believed in, but I thought, well, I feel like I'm missing something. And so I decided to just throw out something to the universe, is what I called it. I didn't call it a prayer, but I made it really specific. And I said, to the one who created everything, what is the truth? And I actually got an answer that day. And I heard loudly, echoing like in a beautiful orchestra, I am. And it wasn't just like I am, it was like the I am spoke to me that day. And in an instant, I snapped out of it and I woke up. And while I didn't have all of the answers right away, now I knew where to look. And so I got really big into Christian apologetics because I know what it's like to not to be able to believe. And so I had written a book, An Evolution of Faith. It talks about my story in detail. And it also is something that I wrote to people who may still be in these practices. Or if you're a Christian and you know somebody who still practices yoga, or maybe they're a Christian yoga instructor, I made this very accessible to show why isn't yoga compatible with Christianity? And in a very short way, where there's a long list for that, I would say the biggest thing, right, is some people say, Hayley, well, when we're doing sun salutations, rather than, thinking about like the sun, we're thinking about the Son of God. But the thing is, God says in the Bible, do not worship me like the pagans worship their gods. These things are not compatible at all. But if any of you have questions or anything, I'll be around today and tomorrow. Please come and talk to me, and maybe we can discuss these things together. Thank you so much for having me.